I decided to invite JR back on the podcast. Our anniversary is coming up, 17 years. It's hard to believe. And we oftentimes do a check-in. And I thought an anniversary is a great time to sort of take a moment and take stock. And so this is that conversation. I'm your host, Tiffany Sauder, and this is Scared Confident. So welcome back, babe.
Good to be back for my annual visit.
Tough to get a guest lineup.
Yeah.
So here we go. Our anniversary is coming up. So you're going to be my April featured guest, I think, from here to into the future. Because our anniversary is in April.
Put it on my calendar.
So it's April. It's our anniversary month. We're coming up on how many years?
Well, we got married in 2005, so it's 17 years.
17 years. How does it make you feel to say 17 years you've been married?
Goes fast. It's quickly approaching 20. I don't know. Almost more so than birthdays, though. The years go with the kids. I feel like as your kids take on experiences almost more than what you and I share. That's what, I don't know how I mark the time.
I remember when I realized my mom's anniversary was like, I don't know, 23 years or something. And I realized she had been married for more years, like on earth, than she hadn't. And we're like getting close to that. We were 25, but it's not that far away.
I had just had this conversation. I was interviewing somebody the other day and they were asking me about how long I've been in Indiana. And I've almost lived in Indiana now longer than anywhere else. For my childhood, I stayed in one location from the first 18 years of my life. So I was like, I've almost lived here in Indiana longer than I lived
that is really interesting.
So,
You're going to be like a real Hoosier here soon.
Pretty close.
Also kind of a sweet serendipitous thing that happened is my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, his name is Wendell. He married us and he passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a giant in my life, very much. So he married us, and my uncle, Randy, and my mom were cleaning out his office, and they found his handwritten notes from the ceremony that he held in our vows, which is really cool to be touching these. These papers are 17 years old, and my grandpa wrote them. So what do you remember from the day?
Well, obviously, Grandpa Wendell's presence on the day and just his smile, which I can still envision now. But to that point, really just the smiling faces around at the reception, and I think the atmosphere that was created, and a lot of that has really translated for us into our home, where there just seems to be a lot of people around. Typically, we're laughing and having a good time, and I think it has carried forward from April 24th in 2005 to today.
We are both the oldest in our families, and our families both played, I would say, like leadership roles in our small communities. So it was like, there was a lot of people there. You think like 400 or 500? A lot of people. And I think that's what I remember is just being like, our community is so big. And I think it was novel that we were kind of on the front end of our parents' friends getting married. The front end of like all the cousins were still there.
Big families, a lot of cousins. We both have that in our family trees, I guess. So yeah, just large family, but then different diverse friend groups as well that showed up. I don't know what the acceptance rates was, but it seemed like
there's a lot of people
we
there.
Invited were there to celebrate us, and it was fun to have all them there.
I think that when you're at the beginning of your marriage, you see like the outline of your life and like the outline of these vignettes that you picture. Like for me, I pictured kids, but I couldn't see their faces as an example of like where you can see the outline. And I think the like different perspective that I have 17 years in is that you begin to like live and experience the whole thing in full color. And just like in real life, it has texture, and there's places where it's like bright and sunny and shiny, and there's places where there's shadows. I think your relationship starts to have a more like in real life understanding as you go through the actual experience of being married, the experience of changes, the experience of figuring out how to fit your dreams into the same picture, and you have one life to make it happen. And so when I think about my expectations as I was standing there as a bride, I knew that JR and I were going to be called to a life that was bigger than I could see. We both knew that really early in our relationship that we were probably going to be asked to lead. We were probably going to ask to do things. We were probably going to be asked to step into discomforts that we didn't totally understand. I remember really vividly a couple of times having the conversation of like, we just knew that there was going to be a sense of adventure in life and also a sense that things were going to be, I say hard, not in like this is the cross I have to bear hard, but that it was going to take work to do it well. And so that part is not surprising to me. I always pictured, I think, that piece of our life, it being really complex. I think there's a richness of like texture, a depth to our lives that I don't know that I had the maturity to be able to even picture when I was 24, 25 on my wedding day. But I'd say the one thing that is the same, our wedding was huge. And even today, our relationships are huge. There's so many people around us, and I think that is the same in our life. We've always been surrounded by a huge group of people that we love and that we feel their love in our lives. When you think back the last 12 months, last time we were on the microphone, I was going through my fear journey. We talked a lot about how one of my biggest concerns about this project was you are more private and introverted, like internal processor, keep things close to the vest. I am not. And so your willingness to like let me go on this journey, open up our family and our lives a bit to the outside world, I had a lot of fear that would create conflict for us. So 12 months into it, how has it been for you?
Well, I think even when you talked about going through this project, it's not all that different than our everyday life. Truly, like things that you say, even in our friend group, I would never share. That's just how it is. So it's part of who you are, and you want to use this platform to talk about what's going on. And it seems to be helping a lot of people. And I think it helps you and gives you energy, which is then good for our family. So I don't know that there's any, my expectation hasn't been very different from what the reality has been. It's been
connected.
It's been connected to you and who you are, for the last almost 20 years.
Well, let's get people up to speed on, if you think about our lives, April of 2021, and now we're a year forward. What are some of the big events that have happened in our family, in our lives?
The largest one, just from us personally, is me taking a new job, right? That changed our family dynamic the most, required more travel from me early on, and then also just a different intensity, I will say, as moving a company's headquarters from California to Indianapolis, hiring a bunch of employees. It's just a different level of engagement than what my previous role required.
You're on the road a lot more. Yeah, it was interesting. I listened to our episode from a year ago this morning, and you said it seems like as soon as we figure things out, there's a big change dynamic. And we used to blame kids, but now it's lots of other things. And I think it's kind of like as soon as things started to normalize a bit with having Quincy taking this role, we knew was going to just push some things in our home to a different level, that the way I have to support your schedule has certainly changed. And I think the other piece is we've talked about at different times in our marriage. Sometimes it has been that my career and like what I was doing at Element 3 and my job was like first, and you were first on deck for, being consistent for the nanny and picking up kids and running. And then there's times where that's flipped. And when you were taking this job, I don't know if we stated it explicitly, but I understood like, I'm not going to be able to travel, and I'm going to need to be the steady one in the home so that you can freely be able to leave with a week's notice. You're not in a role right now where it's super, super planned.
Right. I think we talked about it. I don't know that we knew the exact specifics about how it'd be like, hey, you need to be in Dallas in 3 days, and that's just what has to happen. There's that aspect of it, but we knew it would be some period of time where there would be a different requirement on my schedule. And then, this upcoming year, I think there's going to be more demands on your schedules, definitely in the evenings and on weekends. And so I think we're relatively aware of how it's going to go, and then try to be more planful around what that means. I think on the logistics side, you tend to run point, and from that for our family. But I'm aware of what needs to transpire and take place, and how I need to look at my own schedule.
So in the last 12 months, what are the things as you look at our marriage? We hope that each year takes us forward and not backwards. We've had some backwards years. What would you say, looking at this past 12 months, what are the things that you feel like we really grew in our relationship, and where are places that, your hope, like that you look forward and say like, hey, I think these are places we need to really make sure we're paying attention as we look forward into the next 12 months? We've
grown having really 2 teenage daughters. I know our second daughter, Ainsley, is not a teenager yet, but she acts up just in her maturity level and experience. So having intentionality between us and how we parent that age group, I think we've really grown in that and supported each other. And that's something that takes an effort with girls. I think maybe in particular at that age is an area that comes to mind. I would just say as a family, I feel like we're pretty tight knit. We got to have the opportunity to go spend time together in Utah again. I think that's something that draws our family closer together. And there's been definitely support there.
I would say from my perspective, we are for the first time experiencing the real logistical realities of having 4 kids. We had Quincy in 2020, but we were, COVID was kind of still locked down. She's a baby, doesn't go as much. And I think this year it feels like we're at full tilt, and there is more complexity, I think, in staying connected as you and I as a couple, when it seems like there's just another dimension of activity. The girls are more teenagery. They want to be with their friends more. The weekends isn't so much family time. There's still a lot of family time, but they want to be, it's natural. They should want to do those things. And so I think being more intentional, if I were to be critical of the last year, it's being more intentional about you and I finding the space to be you and I, because there is an endless amount of activity here and running and all the things. And so that's a place, as I was reflecting, I think we could do better.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of on your theme for this year about just and being the theme. And is hard. You've talked about just different roles that you're stepping into, maybe a little bit less at Element 3, but more in some of the other business ventures and boards. I'm helping on something in the community, and that's along with a bigger job. Girls aging up. So it is just other responsibilities that in a vacuum, I would say, are all good and in a lot of ways necessary for our own growth and what we want to accomplish. But yeah, sometimes at the detriment to us spending time together just because of evening commitments. And maybe, not really sometimes at the detriment, but usually at the detriment of us having any quiet time or ability to get away.
Yeah. And I also think that as the kids have gotten older, they want to do with us a lot of the things that we used to do alone. We used to travel a lot more alone. Skiing, we used to just go us, and now the kids come. When we would go to a new city, it would just be us, and now the big girls want to come. It's great to have those shared experiences with them. But if I look back critically at the last year, I think that that's the thing we need to be more intentional about. Where would you say we are on our relationships on a scale of 1 to 10?
7 or 8, probably somewhere in that range. Probably 7.
You said a 7. Where would you say we are now?
I'd probably say we're a 5.
Okay. You want to expand on that?
I think it gets back to what we were just being critical about ourselves on, just from a time perspective and not having as much time together. That leads to a lower ranking when you're just not with somebody. And it seems even more recently, it seems like the way the schedule has broken, either I'm gone and then when I'm home, that's when you need to schedule things and book things because you've got coverage for the kids. And having Mrs. Garcia and losing her as our support system and nanny who's just around day to day, and there's just a lot more moving pieces around the house. I think we've lost some of our own flexibility to spend time and be together on top of all the obligations that a new role has put on me and new business ventures and other things have put on you.
Do you think it's okay? I'm like, this is a sincere question. Like, imagine it's not our relationship. That's a 5. Is it just a cycle of things that like things get to a 5? I'm asking this like objectively. As an adult, do you just say like, yeah, there are like relationships cycle. Like they go to, there's 10s, there are 8s, there are 5s, there's 3s, and they go back. Like that's what it is. Or should our expectation be that no, we can make the decision for it never to get below a number that we pick?
Yeah, I think the younger me would have said you shouldn't get below a 7. You know, you're below 7, like warning signs should be going off. Now, I would say, like just like in almost everything in life that you do for a long time, whether it's your job, any relationships you have, whether that's parents, siblings, spouse, friends, it cycles. It does cycle. Your faith walk. If you're at a 10 all the time, like there's typically a burnout or hard crash that can happen from my experience. So the fact that it cycles, if it's like a 1, then I think we've gone too far. But if it's at a 5 and we both recognize like this isn't good, we need to do something about it, and we know what that is, and for us it's like, hey, we probably just need to get away and spend some time together. There's usually things that we have to talk about, and after 48 hours we'll be back on an upward trajectory.
Babe, I just want to say thanks for 17 years. I'm so proud of the maturity that is in our love today. I'm so proud of the family that we have together. And I'm excited for where life continues to lead us, and that we continue to fight through the dance of allowing both of our dreams to live out loud and big in our lives. Thanks for letting me make you crazy. My mission for Scare Confident is to help women confidently pursue a life of and I want to be available to you. I'm passionate about vulnerably stepping into my stories so that it can help women. This is about creating the resource that I wish I had as I was going through this journey. So if you have questions, comments, or feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Text me at 317-350-8921. So here's what this tool is. It's a personal number that I've set up for Scare Confident. It comes straight to my phone, and it allows me to see and us to interact with one another like directly. So I can text you back and answer your questions. So this opportunity to be able to interact directly, not necessarily have to jump through the algorithms of social media, but to have a really direct conversation and relationship, is what I'm really excited about with this project of Scare Confident. If we help just one, the whole project will be worth it. So 317-350-8921 is the way that you can get in touch with me. And don't think your question's stupid. It's not. We're all wondering the same thing. So step into courage, ask for help, and help other people who have the exact same questions normalize their journey. Thanks for sharing this with me.